we revised our proposal when I learned that it's actually a municipal run operation. I, for some reason, was under the impression it was you were contracting out space for another firm or agency to use the libraries to set up a queuing system. So now that I'm clear that it's actually uh, city or town employees, then you fall under a municipal quote, which is right here, and it's pretty significant in terms of savings. So total setup with everything we talked about comes down to just $525 per location, and then annual software as a service, and I'm basing it on between 1 and 10,000 customers. It goes up more, but about $2,100 a year. So that's about a 43-cent per customer quote. And then the annual software license per location is only $250. So annualized cost is maybe a little over $2,300. And I suspect you get a lot more features and are much more flexible. So I'm hoping that you'd consider, since you have a number of locations, maybe setting Q Mobile up and trying it, giving a test, and if it works out, maybe having room for two. They're SaaS solutions, so support is just a matter of a phone number. Thank you. As I mentioned, we've been around. We are a software development company. Our firm is located in Connecticut, and we also have an office in Central Asia. That allows us to have basically 18 hours of customer support every day. We also specialize in interactive voice and text notifications, software systems around the world. We have virtual queue management systems, as you're aware of, with Q Mobile. But we were one of the first to actually come up with, prior to these multi-queue systems, with a single queue system called Mobile Maitre D back in 2008, which was adopted by Dave & Buster's, Chili's, and a few other restaurants. So we have quite an experience in this because we developed specifically in and around SMS voice messaging. And unlike email or some other types of development, it's a very specific, specialized field because you are dealing with carriers, you're dealing with what's called routes. How do we get the messages delivered as fast as possible? And there's costs associated with it as well because it's not free to send text messages. However, SMS is the most effective way to communicate. And today, text messaging is the #1 use for a cell phone over voice. So we do website design as well, and we have ISO applications and Android applications. We do SharePoint development, and we have offshore programmers as well as onshore. And we are also a TS Plus reseller, which is, if you're using Citrix, which is very expensive, it's a great alternative. Let's get right into it. So, as we mentioned, our niche industry is SMS, and largely because it's regulated and there's a lot of rules around compliance. And if it's not managed correctly, the federal communication fines can be real hefty. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And why? Because 9.5 Americans out of 10 have a cell phone. Thus, they have SMS. Text messaging is the most used data service in the world. So there's all kinds of apps that are out there now that you probably heard of. Still, SMS is the most widely used for communication. And it's simply because it doesn't rely on internet, where those other apps do. So when you're without internet, SMS still works because it goes over the telephone system's radio frequency. Text messaging is basically a 99% open rate and a 98% read rate in 15 minutes. And some of the interesting trends that are going on is 79% of adults use text messaging for business communication. And of these employees, 82% text more for business today than they did a year ago. And deals are actually being closed over text messaging. We're not talking about mobile marketing, we're talking about communication systems. So we're on the forefront of developing those enterprise platforms for a variety of different businesses. Could be yours or the town of Houston. It's really the direction things are going. You want to meet your customers where they are, and they're not going to pick up the phone, but they will text you. Here's an infographic on how our service works. And our service we have customized for higher education, for hospitals and clinics, for Santa on holiday sets, IT support, and the PassPort program. The software, the soft return on investment, which is quite frankly probably the most important. This will give you a competitive differential, a real wow factor with your customers. It leaves a positive impression because it really does show that you've adopted technology to address one of the banes of our existence, which is waiting in lines. It increases your net promoter score, which is more important than your satisfaction score, because your net promoter score is based on the number of folks that a person, well, it's based on your customers recommending your service. So I could be satisfied doesn't mean I'm going to recommend it. To be truly satisfied is what our net promoter score will recommend. Increased customer loyalty because they're going to come back because they had a good experience. Increased customer frequency. And in the case of patients, it also allows them to wait in alternative locations here. I'm not sure how your layout is, but it is a library, so I think it's a great place for folks to register for the queue, and then while they're waiting, there's a lot to be to preoccupy themselves with. It's very important for workflow improvement, primarily increasing line staff morale, because as people wait in line for more than 8 minutes, they tend to become very disgruntled, and by the time they get to your staff, it's not a good situation. So increasing throughput's important as well. So the goal is to keep the customer happy. As a result, studies have proven that you can actually increase customer traffic by 52%. A Capital One survey done a few years ago showed that when folks see long lines in a retail location, they'll tend to leave maybe with the intention of returning, but however they don't. So without the long lines, that's 52% of business that was walking away that you can bring back. According to the study by the International Council of Shopping Centers, customers will spend $1 per minute while shopping. So if a customer who has a 10-minute wait but is comfortable and secure that you are going to have them in this waiting line and they can use a virtual waiting line to check their status, they're going to continue shopping, they'll continue to spend. Increase table turns for restaurant by 15% while saving $500 a month in replacement of coaster pagers. You raise revenue through text promotions and sponsorships. What's great about this is, especially for a library, you can, I don't know if you can, but it could be something you can consider having a sponsor for, because we have a digital display that enables that. I'll show you. Here's our appointment system, and it would be embedded into your website. And what would happen is folks would be able to access this based on time parameters, open and close, and they can make appointments. And we have an API that can integrate into whatever appointment system you're using, so it can integrate with your existing scheduling system. We're doing this now with the San Antonio Humane Society for their spade and neuter clinic. Here's the app version, which is kind of neat. Not necessary, but neat. This system works great on a laptop, by the way, or a desktop. This is what the app looks like, the Queue Manager app. You can see where you collect the name, the number. In this case, where we're using the appointment schedule, they'll be able to pick an appointment time, the number of folks that are going to be seen. In this case, we added the health plans for the place, for the clinic. Zip code if you want to collect that to determine where your customers are coming from, and then what service they want. Here we have 2 queues. Over here you'll see when a customer is entered into the queue, they'll get a opt-in message which will tell them the queue they're in and what position they're in, and they'll also inform that they'll get a text message when it is their turn to be seen. In the meantime, they can reply S to check their status, or T for more time. That's the notify key. You press that when it's time to summons the customer, and then the remind key is after you've already notified them. And these are all cues to your staff. For example, in one of our clients, after 3 reminders, it will automatically, we built it so it can automatically bump a customer back rather than removing them from the queue. And once a customer comes up and has been served, you click served, and that will put them in our served report, which is important because we want to track how many customers are in the queue and then how many actually got served versus how many left. At the end of the day, or if something comes up and you need to let everybody know that you're closing or whatever announcement there's a way to SMS everybody in the queue. So communication is always important. This is an example of how our web widget for your customer portal could be on your website. We obviously integrated it a little bit more, set the time parameters of when you're open and closed, and then customers can come to this page. They look a little bit different, but you get the point. They'd be able to choose the queue and then press the queue that they want to get into. And then from there, they're going to get an opt-in message, which will tell them what their position is in the queue, as well as options to interact with the queue. And so that's available. And another criteria was having the mobile customer web access. So what we would have is where the customer can text in to access a form to join the queue. We find this to be much more effective than a customer texting in and then within that text trying to join a queue. We could do that as well, but what we found, we can do actually simultaneously. So if the customer just chooses to text their name and choose a queue, we can do that with a reply. And then at the bottom of that, there could also be a URL which would open up the mobile web page. And sometimes for less tech-savvy people, clicking on a little web page and walks you through how to put your information in is easier, and this is all about customer convenience. Here's an example of a survey. We have a form and survey builder that's built into the system. So you can have a link to your, let's say, your summons message when you call folks up to be seen for a PassPort. And at the bottom of that, there could be a survey link, and they can click on that when they leave and complete the survey so you understand how well services were done. There'll be reporting on the back end for that as well. Here's a digital display projection. So there are folks that may not want to give their cell number for whatever reason or may not have one. And in this case, you can have this on basically through an HDMI cable, you can plug this into a monitor, 50-inch or 70-inch monitor, and it will display the number of queues you have. And these are just examples and the names. And this is another alternative for people to be able to see where they are in the queue. And then also has a page that will refresh every 2 minutes, which for some of our clients they use for. Here's an example of some of our reports, what they look like, and they can all also be exported into Excel. And we also offer 2 additional custom reports. So we have our customer list report, which lists everybody who's been in a queue, a customer in queue, so it lists all the customers by the queue they're in. Then we have a customer average wait time report per queue. Here's a sponsor. I'm sorry. Here's a reference from Dave & Buster's. I